So hello, so this is lesson 1. So this is Introduction to Chatbots. So today, for this lecture, I'm just going to give you an overview of what chatbots are, as well as some of the concepts that we're going to be building on further as we go along. Okay? So let me summarize what we were going to be learning. So what you're going to be learning throughout this module, how to build fully functional chatbots that rely on artificial intelligence using Dialogflow. Now, it is possible to build a chatbot without AI, and basically you will have a bunch of if statements. So if it sees certain keyword, then it will do certain things, right? But with the explosion of AI, now these chatbots are much smarter. Now you can actually train this. You can train these bots, so that even though you don't say exactly what the chatbot expected or what was in your training, it was part of your training, it will still somehow understand it because of the AI algorithms or the machine learning that it employs. Okay, and so these are chatbots which rely on artificial intelligence. So it basically learns as you give it more examples. It learns. You don't have to have a specific phrase, for it to figure out what you mean. So that's one thing. So another thing about what we're going to be learning is fully functional, meaning we try to make a chatbot which will actually do something useful. And to do that, we need some data. So towards the end of the semester, we're going to be linking our chatbots to a database or to other AI services. Not AI service, to other API services, maybe like currency or weather, or even other AI services. Okay. And so the chatbot, as you talk to it, it will give you some useful information based on the services. Now, what these services are, different students use different things. All right. I will be presenting some. I'll give a lot of examples, but you may use other services because the thing is, as you know the principle or of how things are done, you will find that you can apply it to any sort of problem that you have. Okay. So we're going to be learning to write and deploy fulfillment code. So there is coding in this module. Coding is essential to make the chatbot do something functional. Now it so happens that this chatbot and most chatbot frameworks, they rely on JavaScript. Specifically a platform called Node.js, which is a very popular platform now. And we're going to learn how to use this Node.js platform specifically to make fulfillment possible with the chatbot. So when I say fulfillment, and we're going to deal with this in greater detail, this is the idea where the chatbot will link to a database and get information from a database or some other third-party service. Okay? So that is, so we're going to learn how to deploy this. Now, there's a bunch of ways to do this deployment. We're going to show 2 ways. One is to have our own custom server, which is going to be run in Heroku, meaning we have full control of our server. Okay. Or we're going to use the built-in one. The second option is we'll use the built-in one from Dialogflow, which is called its inline service. Right? It has an inline service where you can just paste code in and that will act as our fulfillment. Okay, now there are pros and cons for both of them, and students, in my experience, have used either one of these. So I put it out there, but these are options for you. They will essentially allow you to do the same thing. Okay, but both of these are pros and cons, and at the end of the module, when you build your fully functional chatbot, you will yourself make your own choice. Which one do I want to work with? Okay. So the things we're going to learn here, and this is part of the examples that we will provide. This is towards the end. Okay. But we're going to show you how to build a weather bot, a currency bot, and even a lookup bot, from scratch. So we're going to build everything from scratch, and show you the process involved. And that to do this, we need to have very strong fundamentals. Strong fundamentals of the concepts, strong fundamentals of how the chatbot works, and also the coding. We need to have a strong idea of what how the coding is deployed, how the coding works. Understand the code. Okay, so a lot of things to learn, but I believe at the end, once you see your bot running, you can appreciate how this all goes together. Okay, another thing we're going to be learning, in fact, we're going to learn it today, is learn how to deploy the bot into the web and messenger client. Now, this is one of the reasons why we have to use a platform like Dialogflow for our chatbots. If you build a chatbot, the most likely scenario is you have the bot taking messages from a client like Messenger, right, or Telegram. Okay. Now, if you have to interact with this directly, meaning through code yourself, that is actually very complicated to do. Because of the security requirements, you have to read the APIs and the like. So the nice thing about Dialogflow is it makes it easy for you to connect to Messenger or Telegram or even a web, put it into the website almost immediately. And that's what we're gonna learn today, in fact. Okay, so we remove that parameter where how to think about how do we make our client look nice, or how do we even connect to Messenger client. All right. We don't have to worry about that. We can worry about the function. What kind of information is it providing? And that is one thing about this discussion of comparing a chatbot with an app. I don't know if you've been reading articles last time where they were saying that these messenger clients these chatbots will eventually replace these chatbots will replace an app, right? And one of the reasons they say that would happen was, for an app you have to spend a lot of time designing the interface, making the icon look good, designing the buttons, making the buttons click, and all this. For a chatbot, you're ready to go. You don't need to learn any new interface. You just type in whatever you need and you get the information. So there was this talk about this, right? And so our interface, in an app, you have to design this, right? Understand how to build this. For a bot, you don't have to. Everybody knows how to use Messenger, right? Or everybody knows how to use Telegram. It's the same principle. So that's one of the reasons why you also want to make sure you're able to interact with your bot through a proper client, because it's already in your customers' devices, right? And they already know how to use it. Okay, and then finally, and this sort of summarizes this whole module, you will learn how to build an AI application using the latest AI services. So obviously, we won't build a chatbot from scratch in the sense where we'll have to develop our own machine learning models and the like. We will leverage on Google scientists, right, and all of these experts in order to help us build a chatbot. So we're going to build the application leveraging on Google's Dialogflow platform. So we're going to have to make use of this platform. And then because of as we build this platform, we're also going to learn how to interact with what you call API services. Or an API service could also be an AI service. Like later on, we're going to learn how to get sentiment into our chatbot. So basically, as we talk to the chatbot, maybe you want to know, how is this person feeling as he's talking, based on what he's saying. Is he angry or is he sad? So in that situation, you have to deal with another AI service, right, to be able to understand that, which is separate from the chatbot. So I'm going to show you how to actually interact with these other services. Not to mention services like, as I say, weather and currency. We're also going to learn how to interact with an AI type service. and integrate that into our chatbot. Okay, so that is what you're going to be learning throughout this module. Okay, and this will all become clearer, of course, as you start building your own bots yourself. Okay, so let me talk about some prerequisites. Okay, so it will be helpful if you have some familiarity with some programming language, and you did take a Python module, okay, and that will be very helpful. So how proficient you are in coding or on some language will determine how easy it is for you to do coding, of course, for JavaScript and Node.js. Okay, the good news there is there's not a lot of lines of code, right? It's not like long lines of code. It's actually pretty short. So yeah, so you need to, it is an advantage if you are proficient in some language, or even just have a basic understanding of language. Again, if you do not have, we will still begin from scratch. We will develop that foundation first, and it's required because we do know some of our students don't have that understanding or that knowledge for whatever reason, and so we have to start from scratch, or build that foundation first. Basic understanding of the web would be helpful. This will be for later on, because when we interact with other AI services, you're actually interacting with what you call a web, websites, web services. All right. So if you understand how the web works, this is again helpful. But if not, we will again, start everything from scratch. Another thing which is important for this module is you need to have some programming text editor, which is, and when I say programming text editor, it is not Notepad, okay? Because Notepad is not a programming text editor. Programming text editor means if you have like a programming code, okay, it will actually highlight the different keywords and the like. So it's built for programming. And so I recommend Visual Studio Code or Sublime Text. They're available for both Windows and Mac. So download whatever you please. It'll be fine for my case. Your lecturers might have their own particular requirement. But for my case, these two are fine. Or if you know others which you're comfortable with, that will work as well. This one is another requirement, because we've had students who somehow brought a Windows notebook where they couldn't install anything because they didn't have admin access. So one prerequisite for this module would be your notebook should have admin access, because we're going to be installing stuff into it like Node.js, right? How are you going to install Node.js if you don't have admin access, right? So just these two things. I hope it's not too much. You need a programming text editor. Just download and install one, and then make sure you have admin access for whatever notebook that you bring. Okay, yeah. So those are the prerequisites. So let's go to the lesson proper. Okay, so what is a chatbot? So a chatbot is a computer program designed to simulate conversation with human users, especially over the internet. Okay, so you probably have seen this chatbot in action, even if you just have a normal smartphone. When you talk to it with Siri or with the Android assistant, right? These are already chatbots, in fact. But there are also chatbots which are supported under Messenger, or even throughout the web, right? When you are going to the help desk for support, you probably type in something, and then probably this chatbot's a name and the like. So these are all chatbots. They all use the same underlying technology, and they rely on AI to try to make sense of what you are trying to figure out. So this is a very exciting time, because these chatbots, as the users keep on using them, right, they become smarter and smarter. So over time, these chatbots will just become better. Okay, so that's the exciting part about it. And again, this is heavily promoted. There's so many chatbot platforms now which are free to use, not just like the one we're going to be using, which is Dialogflow. Okay. Okay, so again, it relies on conversations as the user interface. I guess the best comparison I would give with a chatbot is an app. Okay, an app basically allows you to do some function, right? So let's say you want to read the news, right? Or perhaps you want to get your stock quote, right? Yeah, so these are what apps do. They give some sort of information to you. However, as I said, the chatbot doesn't require you to click a button, right, or do some gesture. It basically relies you to interact with a messenger client, right, and type it in human, in hopefully human understandable language, right, which you don't have to memorize anything or the sequence. So its difference is on the reliance on conversation as the user interface. Okay, the user interface is the conversation. Okay, so another thing about the chatbot, I already talked about this, is it works with chat platforms. Okay, so for this module, we're going to be focusing on two, which is Facebook Messenger, Telegram, and also the web. But the web is pretty easy. We're going to see that in a moment. You can use other platforms. Students have used some other platforms, because once you know how we activate, Facebook Messenger or Telegram, they'll try some other one. I can't recall though the name of I think it's WeChat. I think some students have used it. So let's look at some examples just in case to know how it's being used in the industry. So this is from Louis Vuitton, right? So you have the screenshot there of Louis Vuitton. So it's used for shopping, maybe ask questions on some particular product. So it says here users can converse with a bot to discover the brand's full line of products, as well as use it to get suggestions on specific items. Okay. All right. So the key here is you try to make the bot simple so that people don't have to figure out, what the bot is for, or how to, what to say to the bot. Okay. So that one has more to do with your design of your bot. How do you make it really simple and useful to your customer? This one is an actual bot. This is a pizza ordering chatbot. So it's from Domino's. So it basically allows a customer to place an order based on the most recent order or a saved preferred order. Okay. So again, people are so hungry, they don't want to reach for an app, they just want to use the messenger. Say, I want a pizza, I'm hungry, right? Yeah. Airline bots, right? So you know why airlines are not doing very well, unfortunately. But airline bots are used, of course, to give better service, because they're 24-hour available, and you don't need to talk to customer agents or company agents. So the company agents come in as a supplement if the bot cannot answer the question, right? So I guess this is pretty familiar to everyone who has traveled. Okay. So this is the idea. You help the customer to book in a conversational manner. All right. So how to do this securely and safely, of course, is the challenge, and something very usable is the challenge, right? Okay, Telco chatbot. This is also used locally, by the way, but at the time of this writing, I was just looking for one, so I'm just using a sample in another country. Okay, but this is used by all telcos, I suppose, in Singapore. Okay, so Vodafone launched a chatbot called Toby. So it helps with basic account inquiries and troubleshooting. Right, this is something that you could implement even in this module, right? When you build your own chatbot. You ever had students who, do this type of troubleshooting type of bot, because you will have your own database, so you could troubleshoot whatever. You could put whatever questions you train that bot and whatever questions you think your users would want, right? You can do that. So this type of thing is doable even in this module, no? Okay, so I hope that is something useful about Dialogflow. I think not in the slides was another that some of these chatbots which are also built into apps. So a chatbot built into an app. So I use one in particular. It's called a Fantastical. Okay, Fantastical. This one allows you to record your to do. It's not a to do. It's more of a reminder. So instead of clicking like in a calendar, right, you'll have to tap certain things and then type in, okay, when is the event going to happen, right? Or when do you want to be reminded, how many days before? In this Fantastical, you can look it up in the App Store. You basically just say, can you remind me tomorrow on so and so event? And I believe that's done also in Siri now, but this Fantastical was the one who started it. And so for me, it's convenient if I want to be reminded. And even Siri, I believe, allows you to just talk through it. But for Fantastical, you have to type in a text box what you want, and it's very smart. So can you remind me next week about this, about whatever? Yeah. So that's a chatbot which I personally use built into an app. Another experience I had would be when I lost my ATM card. So for DBS, if you want a card replaced, you just go to their chatbot. Say, I need a card replaced, and then it has this sort of system where it'll show you pictures of what card is it that you want, and then it will actually just do it. Now, it's really convenient instead of making the phone call, right? Yeah, this is a situation where it was done really well, right? So those are just some other examples that come to mind of how chatbots are really being used today. So let's talk about Dialogflow. So this will be the platform that we're going to be using. Okay, so I will let you watch this video, and I will have a question in e-learning about this. But let me just run through this. Okay, so Dialogflow. So Dialogflow lets you build conversational interfaces. Okay, so Dialogflow lets you build conversational interfaces on top of your products and services by providing a powerful Okay, so Dialogflow lets you build conversational interfaces on top of your products and services by providing a natural language understanding engine to process and understand natural language input. Okay, so as I said, we're leveraging on this platform with this natural language understanding engine. So, for example, things like, what is the forecast today, right? So when you say what's the forecast, Maybe you misspelled it, right? You didn't put the apostrophe, or even the word today. What is today? That's a date, right? So what does that convert to? Okay, and then let's say your bot allows you, different ways to interact. Like you ask it, what's the forecast today, right? So you're asking. Obviously, you're here. You're not asking for the weather, right? It's not mentioned explicitly in this utterance, right? It is not mentioned, but how Dialogflow will sort of understand. Oh, you mean the weather, right? Forecast for the weather, that is its job, right? That's where the natural language understanding engine comes in. Okay, so again, this is quite difficult if you want to do something properly from scratch, meaning you build your NLU yourself, would be an impossible task, no? So we leverage on Dialogflow's platform to do this. So basically, it says here, Dialogflow lets you easily achieve a conversational user experience by handling the natural language understanding for you. Okay. Now, Dialogflow is not the only platform. As I say, it's a very competitive area now, which is great for us. And so you might have heard of things like the Microsoft Bot Framework, IBM Watson Conversation, and Amazon Lex. I will tell you, I have experience with the bot framework. My experience was the natural language understanding of the bot framework wasn't as good as Dialogflow, because I recall when I was trying it out, when I was setting up this module, right? When I was trying out different technologies for this module. Even though I already trained this platform, with a certain training phrase, it seemed like it still didn't understand it. I sort of like gave up. However, when I used Dialogflow, just a few examples, it already figured it out. It is very smart. It is very smart. And I think you would know this if you follow technology. You know that Android's assistant is much smarter than Siri's assistant. It just figures things out so much better. Now, how does it do this, right? They both are NLUs. They both have natural language understanding. It's just that the technology of Google is just smarter, right? So I believe the competition with all these AI services is not just whether you have this service, but how smart it is, right? How smart it is. Does it annoy users by constantly making mistakes? So I will say from my experience, Dialogflow has superior, algorithms, right? It understands things much faster. Now, the only way you would know this is if you try it out yourself. Now, since I already tried Microsoft Bot Framework, I can tell. That's what's my experience, all right? And for IBM Watson's conversation service, well, IBM Watson is supposed to be very good as well, but I've never tried their service. I just found that their tool is not as user-friendly. It's not as user-friendly as Dialogflow's. Amazon Lex, I've never tried it. But so what I will tell you is why Dialogflow. You might ask why Dialogflow. First, it is very smart. Okay, that's number one. It's very smart. Less training phrases, can figure out things faster. Number two, it has a very simple interface to get your chatbot running. Really simple. And I hope after today, when I show you the videos and you try it out yourself, you will agree it is very easy to build the bot. Okay? Now, this bot might be easy to build, but it can be really, really powerful. No? Because actually the power of the bot doesn't come from Dialogflow itself. Dialogflow is just, the platform. It's just like an app. Apple will provide the ecosystem. You'll provide you the SDKs or the tools. But in the end, the app you build yourself. Okay. However, if the tools are lousy, then it hinders you. It hinders your vision, right? If it always buggy, meaning you did the perfect app and it's still making errors, then it is Apple's fault, right? If that is the case. So on one hand, the maker of the platform has to do a good job, right? So that when you actually make it, it's not buggy. It answers things correctly. And Dialogflow is just like that. It is a very good foundation for whatever vision. But of course, what it does, like how it answers questions, what kind of questions it will take, or what kind of responses does it take, that's up to you. Okay? So I just want to be clear, and this will be clear as as you do the bot. Now I do encourage you to read the documentation. This will be, let me just click on this. Dialogflow has very good documentation. That's another thing which I liked about their service. So it's well documented, very easy to understand what these are. So I do encourage you, and we'll probably have some exercises in e-learning to sort of let you try out some of these things. Okay, but that's very good documentation. Okay, so let me just go through the Dialogflow diagram. And so basically, for a chatbot, okay, you will be, of course, interacting. You're going to be asking, what's the weather like today? And that is what you call the user request or the user utterance, okay? So this diagram sort of shows you this concept. So as you can see from this first box here, you have the user. Okay, so we have the user and then the user request, and then basically this request is sent is done through a messenger client. So this messenger client has to be communicating or connected to Dialogflow, right? And so this orange box here is basically the Dialogflow engine or the Dialogflow service. You can imagine it as some sort of website. Or no, it's basically a web server somewhere wherein Messenger will have to, connect to it behind the scenes. All right, and so its job is to read whatever Messenger gave it or what you gave it through Messenger, read it, and then make sense out of it. So it has to extract certain things like, what are the important parts of your message. So in the case like, what is the weather in Singapore? It will have to know, that this is about weather, and that you're talking about Singapore, you're asking about Singapore. So it has to find out which part here is important for me to know what the user is asking. Okay. So that orange thing here, Dialogflow, that is what you call your agent. No, that is the chatbot itself. Okay. So you have to differentiate what is Messenger. It's just a client that is like the tool for you to get out to give out the message to Dialogflow, right? You could of course give that out through a website, or through Telegram. It doesn't matter actually, right? In the end, Dialogflow will have to read some text from these clients and make sense out of it, extract the important parts. Okay, and then sometimes, like when you ask what is the weather in San Francisco, the chatbot has to be connected to some sort of service, like a weather service. You call this portion fulfillment. Okay, fulfillment. That is the idea where the Dialogflow, the chatbot, will now have to retrieve information from another third-party service, right? And it'll basically this service will now you normally will form its response through the code. No, so they say, the weather in Singapore is rainy, let's say. So this thing, the weather in Singapore is rainy, will be formed in the fulfillment, through your code, because you cannot do it in Dialogflow directly, because it doesn't know what the weather is. It's only the bot. It's only the weather service which can give you that data. So it's in your sort of server code to be able to form this response, and then it'll be sent through Dialogflow, and Dialogflow will send it back to the client. Okay, so we were going to learn each step of this, this Dialogflow diagram. So let's just run through. So this is from Dialogflow's documentation. How do the agent, or how does the chatbot really work? Or how does Dialogflow work? So when users say something, the term there is called utterance. So when you type something into your messenger, you call that an utterance. Then your agent matches the utterance to an appropriate intent. Okay, so the intent is also called is something like a task for that chatbot. Now, what tasks or what intents you want for the chatbot to do is up to you. You could, you can ask it to do just one intent, or some intents could be like hundreds of intents. No? Like maybe when you deal with things like Siri, the iPhone, right? It does so many things. You can ask it for so many types of things. I want to know the stocks. I want to know the stock prices. I want to know the weather. I want you to open this app. I want you to open. I want you to play this music. Right? These are all different types of tasks. Right? So these are all what you call intents. Right? So how many intents you want? That's up to you. How powerful you want your bot to be. But at the same time, as you add more power, you make it also more confusing for the bot, right? So there's a balance here and there, okay? So how does it figure out what do you mean? It's basically known as intent classification, no? Intent classification. That is where the agent, or where the platform makes a lot of difference. How it figures out based on your training that this one is what you want. This is the intent that you want. So once your agent matches an intent, like it figures out, okay, I want the weather in Singapore, then it will extract the parameter. So the parameter is Singapore or any other important thing. So let's say I want to open an app. Let's say in Siri, I want to open an app. I want to open the alarm app, right? Then the parameter here is alarm, right? Because it already figured out what is the task that you want, what is the intent. So now you have to read the important facts about this intent so that it can do what you want it to do. Okay, so this is related to parameters and entities we're going to go into later on. So just bear with me on this. They're actually related to each other when you hear the word entities. Okay, and then finally, so Dialogflow defines a large set of entities that categorize extracted parameters. For now, we will just consider parameters and entities the same thing, right? You can think of them as the same thing. And then basically, number 4 is you then send a response that can either prompt users for more information, to continue the conversation, or just to end the conversation. Okay, so again, that's basically the response. You could have like a chatbot where you have, as the bot, you can ask him yes or no, right? So if the answer is yes, then you could ask him more questions, right? So this has to do with how the flow of the bot, which we'll go into later on. Okay, but basically the response is what's coming back from the bot. That's all you need to know at this point. Now, for some of you, you might be interested in, okay, how do I know my agent is good, or what are some best practices? I do encourage you to read this agent design guide. It is a bit long document, but for those of you interested in, what is the good practice, you can read this up. Okay.